Hello, and welcome back to Beyond the Try Line in partnership with SOCS. It's your weekly podcast reviewing the Daily Mail Trophy. And mate, we're going to dive straight into it. I'm large, he's little. What a game. What a game. Tommy Ritchie's Clifton. We've been talking about it for weeks. We built it up and it delivered. Didn't it, mate? Go for it.
Yeah, mate, a hell of a game. And Tommy Ritchie's just losing their first game, this season. And it just shows what a quality side Clifton are and just how tough their fixture list is. They don't hide from anybody, Russ. They've, played 6, won 3, lost 3. But when you look at the quality of that fixture list that Clifton are playing on the circuit, they are, going to all ends of the earth. They've played Pandovery College, they've played Sedbergh, they've played Tommy Ritchie's, they've played Wellington, they've played Millfield. And so, just shows what a quality side they are and how well coached they are by Matt Salter and Danny Grukop down there. And that would have been a tough end of half-term fixture for Tommy Ritchie's to go away down there. But that was one hell of a game, mate. Absolutely one hell of a game.
Yeah, a huge one, isn't it? And we've been speaking a lot about Tommy Ritchie's and how well they've done, and they got a fantastic write-up in the actual Daily Mail newspaper, and, deservedly so as well. A brilliant, brilliant programme, and we don't want to labour the point, state school, grammar school, independent school, we're getting lots of traction on our social media about that at the moment, and it's creating some brilliant discussion. And I want people to keep getting in touch about that because we feel quite strongly that actually all three sectors, if you like, if you split it to state, grammar and independent, all three sectors can push in their different ways to creating better rugby programs that are going to feed into academies, they're going to feed into the national team, they're going to feed into the club game and community level. So it's all good conversation and all good stuff. But 22-28, and you say about Clifton, my only recollection actually of the Clifton program was a semi-final a couple of years ago when I met Danny and Matt, and the great job that they did with those boys. That was an under 15 team. Danny Grukop, I'm not going to lie, mate, I was a little bit starstruck. He's one of my absolute heroes. When he was playing, I kind of modelled myself on his style of play. Just never had his build or his physique to carry it off, I don't think. But what a gentle giant, what a wonderful man. He's got fingers pointing left, right and centre when you shake hands with him. But 28-22, and like you say, you'll have to scroll a little way down the league table to find Clifton. They're 55th at the moment. And many people will look at that and go, but how has a team in the 50s beat a team that was top of the table and going unbeaten? Well, that's the joy and the beauty of a merit table. And as you've just said there, Clifton don't shy away from anybody. They've got a tough fixture list, and therefore context is everything. A try or a conversion or a penalty another way, and we could be talking about them in the top 5. Tommy Ritchie's still sitting second though, and we're recording on Wednesday, and whilst lots of independent schools are on holiday right now, lots of state schools and grammar schools are still term time, and they've got their big local derby against Crypt. Huge game against a Crypt grammar school. 2 Gloucester grammar schools going at it. Not for the Antlers, as we mentioned last week, but that'll be a belter this afternoon, won't it, mate?
Yeah, it should be a great game. And just you sort of going back to Clifton and chatting to Matt and to Danny over the years, they want to put their lads in the spotlight and to put them in games that are, testing their skill set week in, week out. So, they're not scared of losing games of rugby. It means that, the development of their players and their program, continues to move forward. But Tommy Ritchie's versus Crypt, from my time in working in Gloucester in the Gloucester Rugby Academy, etc. A great local derby, and that's that's the beauty of schoolboy rugby, isn't it? It throws up those local derbies. Loads of those kids will know each other from playing against each other through schools and probably in the local club scene. A few of those boys will be involved in the Gloucester pathway, and that should be another really good game. And it'd be really interesting to see how Tommy's bounced back after that first loss of the season against Clifton. So should be a belter, and maybe you'll see a few of those kids running out on Boxing Day for the Antlers.
Yeah, and there's a few Crypt grammar school old boys who listen to the pod. They listen to the pod, mate. And it would be great to hear from them after that game. I know they'll be keeping one eye on that to see how their old school goes on. But that does mean that Northampton School for Boys have gone back to top of the table after a very, very convincing win against Rugby School, 66-10, I believe. Mate, they've had some half-term, haven't they, NSB? They really have.
Again, look at the quality of the teams that they're beating, and Rugby School are absolutely no mugs. Run a great rugby program up there, and that would have been maybe a bit of a shock to Rugby School, to to come up against that side, and just showing the quality of that of the Northampton School for boys. I watched their under-15s play at the weekend, and they were really, really impressive. So, it's not just at the top end of the school. They've got a great rugby program running through the school. Listen, we're all excited by some of the fixtures coming up after half term as well. And, I'm sure those Northampton School for boys lads will enjoy a bit of a rest and break over half term when it comes. But there's some great rugby to be played after half term. It's genuinely really, really exciting.
Yeah, we're going to have a look at that a bit later in the show, actually. Some fixtures to keep an eye on after the boys have had a well-earned break, and the staff for that matter. But it will be remiss of me not to mention Sedbergh, who their game against Blackrock obviously didn't qualify them for Daily Mail trophy points there, although that was a humdinger. Two world famous school rugby programs going at it, but Sedbergh's still in third. And then in fourth, just coming up on the rails, my old school, Kings Wimbledon, KCS Wimbledon, who have just been quietly going about their business, really. They have had good wins against Hampton. They've had good wins against RGS Guildford, Wimbledon College. And then most recently, on the Wednesday, just gone last Wednesday, they had a good win against Trinity Croydon, a school that over the last few years have done amazing things when Ian Kench was there, a good mate of ours who's now over at Oxford University. But that game there, 36-19, and the Kings Wimbledon lads currently sat in fourth position. So I know that they will be delighted about that.
Yeah, and I'm delighted for Alex Brown, who's the new head of rugby, gone across there from Dulwich, and I know that he was genuinely excited about getting involved in the Kings rugby program and seeing where they could take that side. I believe the upper six, Russ, is that right? Are the ones that you took to the 15s final, and so they've got a good side coming through, and I know that Alex likes to play a decent brand of rugby, which will suit those lads, and good to see them sort of really sitting, and working hard to be at the top of the table. It's interesting, that circuit, isn't it? You mentioned Trinity, and they've not had as strong a year as we would have all expected. But you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. They're carrying a few injuries across the board, but they've produced some wonderful players that are now sort of out playing in the Premiership. It'd be good to see Lucas Friday hopefully making his way back to the Quinn setup following his ACL reconstruction. So I believe he's pretty close to being back up and running. But again, how lucky are all those schools in the London area to be able to play, on that local circuit. There's such a hot rugby hotbed in Kings, Whitgift, Dulwich, Trinity, all those schools in around the local area, St Benedict's. That fixture list on its own within the M25 is an absolute cracker. So, yeah, go on the Kings boys.
Yeah, go on the Kings boys. And I suppose just to give it a little bit more detail from the fact that I was involved in that programme for many years, lots of those boys in the upper sixth have been playing together since they were under 9s and under 10s. Being a through school, you can join that school when you're 7 years old. And actually, we managed to keep that core group together. And then they've had touch points with different coaches throughout that. And like you say, a fresh voice and a fresh set of eyes has been absolutely the best thing for that group of boys. And I know it, there's only so much you're going to take from staff around you. And those boys have had some, brilliant coaches throughout their time in the program. But for Alex to come in and do a super job with them. And then they've got lads, and this is quite rare for Kings being an academic school. They've got lads involved in the pathways, in the Harlequins pathway. They've got two boys in that upper sixth doing great things. Scrum half Max will be starting this weekend. They're flying up, actually. Harlequins are flying the boys up to Newcastle. Spoke to his dad last night, so he's really excited to be starting at 9 in a Harlequins under-18 game this weekend. And then Leo, the number 8, who's been doing brilliant things for a long time. Absolute beast. And I know there's some men mountains out there, some lads who you think could play men's rugby now. They certainly could. He's just been drafted in for an England development weekend as well. So doing good stuff for Harlequins in the back row and getting his shot at England, which for a school, like I say, I'll say it again, I'll say it, I'm sure in the future, for a school like Kings, incredibly rare to have anybody get national representation in one of those core sports. So yeah, delighted when I heard that news. And their last game, mate, of the next half term is against Dulwich, so that'll be a beauty for Brownie. That'll be a cracker.
That'll be a bell. So I really enjoy going back across there. But it's great, isn't it? I mean, I just on that, I question the value of an academy game at this time of the season when those boys are tired. Harlequins up to Newcastle. So those lads really need to be travelling all the way up there this weekend. Good on the lads. I hope they go well. I'm sure they'll represent the school with pride in that Harlequin shirt. But I think that clearly it shows that the power of getting a group together and bringing them through the school together, but also it shows the cyclical nature of schoolboy rugby is that, sometimes you could just get a great group together and have a great season, and then next season, it can all not necessarily fall apart, but it can drop off just because that's the nature. Some year groups are better than others, and that's why we love schoolboy rugby, because everybody, gets a chance to get to the top, and everybody, if you've got that one decent side coming through, and you can nurture them and add a couple of boys from the year below when they're in the top of the sixth form, they can really shine on that national stage, and that's what the Daily Mail Schools Trophy allows them to do. It doesn't mean that you're going to be in top tier every year, but there is the ability to win something like the Daily Mail Schools Trophy with that one really, really good year group you got coming through.
Without a doubt. And can I just ask you then, and this was something we spoke about because it wasn't often we would have back-to-back year groups at Kings. We certainly felt like we developed and nurtured players regardless of their age group and regardless of what team they were in. But how do you overcome as a head of rugby and a director of sport that imbalance? So there'll be lots of school teams out there at the moment. I certainly know NSB are one of them. Kings certainly one of them as well, whereby they're very upper sixth heavy, as in, they could have maybe 13, 14 starters that are upper sixth, and therefore they're going to lose them next year. They're going to go into university or professional contracts or academy programs. So how do you balance that out as a director of sport and a director of rugby to make sure that there isn't that gap the following year?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Number one is what your second, third, fourth, teams look like. So I was chatting to to Sam Howard about his son who's over at Whitgift, and predominantly their second 15 is all lower sixth, but second 15 is a really good standard of rugby on the circuit that they're playing on. So they're developing those kids, playing together as a team through playing second 15 rugby. And then, they will slowly drip feed some of those boys into the first team so they get a good experience and know what it's going to be like moving into next year. I think the sevens program can play a good part in that as well. Your sevens and 10s program, and managing the load. So, you're going to have some top boys who are playing a lot, going back to playing club rugby, playing sevens and 10s. So keeping the boys playing and involved in rugby in the Lent term wherever possible. Summer program, what does your summer program look like in terms of skill development through that summer term? I know we used to run a Friday night 4:00 session, which was, a lot for the boys to come along and give an hour of their time to getting better as rugby players. What does your summer tour program look like? And then what does your pre-season look like? So, I think it'll be on, heads of rugby's minds now as to already looking forward to next year, looking at their fixture list, potentially adjusting that fixture list a little bit if needs be, and looking at what that pre-season program looks like to ensure that those lads who are all lower sixth this year are ready to rock and roll into next year. But also in the mind that, most of those boys will have probably played ALB team rugby all the way through their career at school. Hopefully we'll get a few late developers into that squad who potentially not been involved all the way through, but by the time you get to 16As and then into second 15, those kids are used to playing a decent standard of rugby.
Couldn't agree more, mate. Could not agree more with that. And then we've got Wellington in fifth and St Benedict's Ealing in sixth, who had a good win against Windsor Boys. I spoke to Zoran about that, and he was delighted, excited to go into it. Feels like they've had a brilliant half term, and they really, really have. Lots of these schools that are doing well. You just mentioned it there, mate. The summer tour program, something we looked at as a school, and we looked at that end of summer pre-season piece. But actually, that longer international tour and post-COVID, these have started to come back in, haven't they? So Kings were away in South Africa. Lots of schools away in South Africa, I know, going for that challenge, going to really test themselves against the world's best schoolboys. And there's no doubt in my mind what a springboard that is for those boys going into their rugby term. And I think if you've got the means and you've got the capability, and often it takes a willingness from the staff to get this off the ground, and we know, don't we? And any parents that are listening to this, the amount of red tape now that you have to go through in a school environment to get a tour off the ground is horrendous. I'm sure that before it used to be organised in a pub 20, 30 years ago on the back of a beer mat, and away you went. You just got cracking and going. You can't do that now, and for good reason in many ways. But those tours, a huge, huge part. And I think for me, I see it clearly now. I've come out of the programme. I think if you can go international or something that's really, really challenging at some point during the summer, perhaps in July, give the boys a break, give them time with their families, go away on holiday, and then you can come back and do something that's really intensive, but really meaningful in the school environment just before the term starts, reminiscent to what I spoke about a couple of weeks ago at St Edward's, where they used the boarding houses. The boys moved into the school for essentially a week of rugby. I think for me, that seems to be the best balance to give yourself the best possible chance during that Michaelmas term.
Yeah, and it's there's a lot to be considered, isn't there? There's other tours that will want to go out. Those boys might be playing cricket, they might be on a music tour, they might be wanting to, go to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, whatever it might be. So, and if you're going to do that same program every year, most schools will probably go every 2 years, every 3 years on one of those big international tours. There's a lot to be considered in terms of cost for family. How do you fundraise? I mean, at Dulwich, we used to have the boys, out knitter picking and doing all sorts of bits and pieces to raise the funds that were needed to go on those big tours. South Africa, you mentioned it, is a wonderful option for, the quality of rugby, the rand to a pound. There's, not a big gap in terms of difference. So, South Africa is a great option. We used to take the boys to the south of France as well, and it's every other year, so we'd have a big tour, and then south of France, where again, facilities are great, rugby's great, but it does more than just allow you to work on skills. We all know that producing a good team, whether that be a rugby team, cricket team, football team, whatever it might be, is more than just skill development and tactics. The opportunity to bond and bring the group together on a tour like that. And it's a never say die attitude, and it's all those bits that come with it that mean, when you're in the final throes of a game, that those boys they're gonna come together and fight together for the shirt, and have clarity in terms of what they're doing. But it's definitely more for me than just about the rugby development. It's the people development. It's the team bonding. It's the spending time together. It's getting to know the boys inside out. I used to love sitting on the bus on the journeys that we would be going on, and be sitting at the back of the bus and just chatting to the lads and getting to know them a bit better. Some of the music taste was a bit dodgy on those buses at times, but we got Stuart Locke back on the mic, so he would always sing with his Welsh dulcet tones. But yeah, the experience is much more about the other bits. It's the off the pitch bits, which the training at home doesn't necessarily give you at times, and having a laugh together, having some fun together. You can, all the podcasts that are coming out now about the Lions, and a lot of it was that they didn't train for the first 4 weeks. They literally went from game to game to game to game. But it was about the bonding and the time spent together away from the rugby pitch that, really meant that when the push came to shove, they were going to, fight and die for each other. And the skill work and the tactical stuff can all be done at school in the summer term. Yes, you're going to implement stuff, and yes, you're probably going to review a bit of video whilst you're away. But for me, it's probably more about the other stuff. And then, as you said, when you come back, then that's when you can get into real detail around how you're going to operate that season. And does it change season to season? It's really interesting to talk to coaches about. They might have a philosophy and a way of playing at Brighton College, for example, or Wellington. But if you've got a massive forward pack, are you going to be chucking the ball around everywhere? So. That is a long-winded way to answer that question, but who doesn't love going on tour? Who doesn't love that? It's great.
It's the best. It's the best. I do miss it. I've got to find a way. We've got to find a way. A Daily Mail trophy beyond the Tryline Tour coming at you. Come on, we want it. And then if we just look a little bit further down the table before we look ahead to some of the fixtures after half term, and one particular fixture we've had our eye on for weeks. A shout out to St John's School Leatherhead in 16th at the moment. I managed to get some time with Topsy Ojo there, Topsy from the TV, who does some work over there with Liam St John, the head of rugby. And I think Liam's done a wonderful, wonderful job in terms of curating a fixture list that works for that works for them, works for the school. They're playing sides that they should be playing, and they're getting great challenge week in, week out. So brilliant work by everyone over there. And Topsy been delighted with the boys. They've been working hard in sessions, and how lucky are those St John's boys to tap in to his knowledge, particularly back three, particularly backline stuff, which you and I have been talking about recently, haven't we, mate? That is so niche and often can be forgotten about. So to have somebody who's played at the highest level in that back three must be brilliant for those boys. And then if we just go down a little bit further, we got Ipswich School, who have played 7 games this half term in 27th. They'll certainly be coming up on the rails. I know that for sure. And doing great things over in the east of England. But mate, the big one that we're looking at, and we've got one eye on, is obviously Sedbergh NSB next half term. Currently, first against third. What about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a cracker, isn't it? You know, I'm going to try and get up there and watch that on that weekend. Yeah, geez, I mean, you know, Sedbergh play that incredible brand of rugby. Northampton School for Boys have played good brand of rugby, tough, you know, really efficient set piece, mouth-watering clash, you know. But that's the beauty of schoolboy rugby, and I think this is where we're trying to elevate schoolboy rugby in terms of, you know, people having eyes on it, because it is such a great brand of rugby to be able to go and watch it, you know. And these games are popping up. You know, there's 4 or 5 get mouth-watering pitches every weekend. I mean, we've not mentioned Epsom College, who I think of, you know, slowly creeping up on the rails. Brighton College, again, slowly creeping up on the rails. They're both sort of played 5, won 4, lost 1, all doing great things. But every weekend, there's probably 5, 6, 10 fixtures out there that are absolutely mouth-watering clashes. However, it's hard to look past this one potentially as a real sort of game of the season and a highlight. You know, it's up there with the Millfield Wellington game that we watched the other week. So who's going to call that one? I don't know. Away for Sedbergh, but they're used to going away. They're used to travelling. They're used to getting on the road and travelling for fixtures. But where am I going to go? I'm going to go with a very, very tight win for Sedbergh. I think that they might just nip it away from home last minute, play from under their own sticks, off they go on the boys in brown. But I wouldn't be surprised if Northampton School for Boys turn them over, particularly after their results this season, you know, the big wins they've had and the confidence that will be bringing within that group of players. I have sat on the fence there, mate. I have sat massively on the fence there. I can't call that one.
I think you've gone for Sedbergh. And it's only right if I go for NSB. I'm an East Midland man. I know that upper sixth form well, and yeah, I'm going to go for NSB. I think they're just going to nick it, but I don't think there'll be much in it. I think there'll be a score in it either way. And then Wellington College, a side that have just done really well at St Joe's Festival. People will have seen on social media having won it. So huge congratulations to them. And mate, I'm just going to list, and we do this often, but it's important for context. Post half term, Clifton, Lord Wandsworth, Sedbergh, Tunbridge, Brighton, Gordons, Wellington, putting their head on the chopping block. What a half term. Currently in 5th position. I mean, if they get on a run there, you never know, do you? Obviously, confidence is high. They're obviously playing well. Not too many injuries. I don't know. I've just got a feeling about them. They know how to win, don't they, that school?
Yeah, they certainly do. And I was lucky enough to be up at St Joe's this weekend and watch them play. And again, that brand of rugby they play. But that is a tough fixture list to be able to back that up week in, week out. What I will say is if you look at their second team results, is that their second team are going really, really well. They will definitely be thereabouts in the mix at the end. And Harrow's another school, I think, you know, you look at their fixture list after half term, incredibly tough. But they will also be in that mix come the end. And the other one I'd probably just mention is Campion. We've not mentioned them for a couple of weeks, but sitting in 10th, you know, played 6, won 5, you know, lost 1. They again have got a tough, you know, run in after half term, but they will come out firing. You know, they will absolutely come out firing after half term. So, you know, how exciting is that? It's all in the mix, Russ. It's all in the mix. You know, what does the weather conditions do? Hopefully we don't lose too many of these fixtures to the weather. We're really excited to be up at Collegiate School on the 8th of November, which will be a great game, local derby, and you know, against Bristol Grammar School, who also have been going well. So I agree with you. Wellington will be absolutely there or thereabouts come the end of it. No shadow of a doubt. They'll probably push into that top 10. But they don't, again, you know, they just don't hide from anyone. And that's, as I said, I keep saying it, but, you know, let's keep elevating the schoolboy game because there's so many great fixtures week in, week out.
And one way we are elevating it is exactly that. On the 8th of November, you and I are going to be given a pair of microphones and going to be asked to commentate on that Bristol Grammar Collegiate game, which we feel incredibly fortunate to be invited to do, and we cannot wait. So keep an eye out for that. There'll be more coming out via social media on SOCS. There'll be more coming out via our social media as well. So do keep an eye on that. Mate, it's been a belter. It's been great to wrap it up. It is half term. It's definitely going to be half term for pretty much everybody next week. And what a belter it's been, all right?
It's been brilliant, guys. Thanks everyone for following. It's been a great half term. It's been an absolute privilege for me and Russ to be involved, and you know, for everyone out there, we're really loving it. Hopefully, you guys are loving it too. And if you can get along to watch some of these games, Share the pod wherever you can. Like it, subscribe. He's been large. I've been little. We'll see you next time. Take care.